Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm so thrilled to be talking to the wonderful Tom Bateman about his projects based on a true story in which he plays the character Matt, as well as Magpie, which he's the screenwriter of. And starting off and talking about based on a true story, I love the story of how you auditioned and how that really opened up the idea of how to play this character for you, with Alex Buono, who's one of the directors on the series, kind of giving you this note of, okay, now try it in this direction, try it angry, try it scary, try it sad, try it very charming, and then giving you the opportunity to do a version where you really rolled all of that into one and kind of played against the grain of what it seemed like some of the lines would be. And when we watch your performance in the show, it feels like you're encapsulating that through every single scene throughout. And so I was curious how that experience in the audition room really shaped the way that you started to perceive playing this character.
Well, very much just that it did shape it. When I was reading, it's a funny one because the tone of the show is so interesting that it's very dark and it tackles and deals with some very tense issues, but it is also very funny, and they want to sort of tread this line. And what's been super interesting returning to it too is that a lot of the actors in it said, "Oh, we feel like we kind of fall into one of the camps. We're either in the, oh, I'm going to do some funnies, or we're in the, oh my God, I'm really scared and tense all the time." And the joy and the privilege of playing the role that I do is that he really does just sit on the fence of both and just sort of walks that tightrope walk, which is creatively very fulfilling, challenging too. But it just means that any scene for me could kind of go in any direction. He's never 100% honest with anyone. He's always got a few aces up his sleeve, a dagger in the boot. He's got his secrets, but he knows how to play people. So that tone was really, really fun to play. And if I'm honest, that was something I was discovering in season one with Alex and all the creatives. Returning for season two was super fun but daunting because I don't watch stuff I'm in. And so it was super interesting thinking, wait a second, because I'd done a few things in between that were very, very different. And I thought, wait, how do I get back into this guy? And it kind of took me a little while. The great thing about season two is we find Matt when we first find Matt. He's so not where you think he's going to be, both physically and emotionally. He's not. He's not. It doesn't pick up straight away, and hopefully, in order to go, wait a second, who is this guy? Like, what's he up to? So it kind of allowed me as an actor to rediscover because I was encouraged to kind of do a lot of things afresh. But then in that, I started to find that tightrope walk of the dramatic and the comedic as well.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I know that in your research as well, that one of the things that you really uncovered that sounds like it was very helpful was the idea that psychopaths really have this chameleon quality and create different masks for other people. It's figuring out who they want you to be and mirroring it back to them. And I feel like when we watch scenes with different characters, we get all these different versions of him because of that. And so, how have you set about over the course of two seasons, finding all these nuances in how you feel like he's going to present differently depending on who he's in a scene with or who he's meeting for the first time and what he wants from them?
Well, the joy is that I'm doing a lot of scenes with new people, and as you say, what I found interesting, particularly towards the end of season one, my character was coming into contact with a lot of new characters that I'd never met before, and he'd worked out who to be with Chris's character, Kaylee's character, Liana's character, his own son. He'd worked out this mask, perfected this mask really. And what was fun towards the end of season one was he was meeting a whole bunch of new people. And it was really cool because actors who came in that I'd never met before and was doing scenes with were all going, oh my God, this is super, like, it's super strange. Like, one of them even said to me, he said, oh, you're kind of sort of copying like some of my energy. I went, yeah, I know, man. That's sort of what and it was really fun as an actor to turn up and very quickly, I mean, I'm more the meta, art reflecting life. Me as an actor was doing what Matt, the character, was doing, which is very quickly reading these actors, reading the performances they were given, and thinking, how's my character going to use that? How's he going to mimic back? What do they want him to be? And then performing that, and that's pushed even further in season two because we find his lies and deceptions, which have a very ulterior motive in this season, which was super fun. But he's pushing himself into a new place. So people who kind of know him and know that you do this thing, you tell me what I want to hear, and you're just playing with me. He kind of goes behind enemy lines in season two and just goes, honestly, guys, I know you think this thing about me, but I am changing. He's creating new masks as he goes, which was super, super fun because it just meant that it was still in the same DNA of the character that he is constantly pretending to be something he's not, that he is holding this mask up to the world while having these secrets behind that mask. But what was super fun was pushing that to an extreme and in new circumstances. So it just gets deeper and more interesting in this season, that game.
And I think in terms of what you're talking about there with season two and where we meet him at the beginning, which is that he has stepped away and he's trying to essentially go through sobriety and to not kill anybody. And he kind of leans into this very, hippy dippy retreat space. And, that's not who I am anymore. And it kind of feels like anything that he does it to the fullest extent and takes it very seriously. And so even though he's kind of trying to be very calm and relaxed, there's a real intensity to him. And how did you look at everything that you'd built in season one? And okay, if this is where he's now going, what would that version look like? Because it's not, some of it's a mask for other people, but this is actually also interesting because it's him really trying to be this person.
Yeah. And I guess it's just really pushing that even further, that mask thing in season two. We never wanted to repeat, but at the same time, you need to give the audience what they want and what they loved in season one. And I was reminded of a phrase that I wrote down in my trailer and had written on my mirror for season two, which is the greatest trick the devil ever played was to convince the world he didn't exist. And I thought that's what he's doing in this season. He's said, "Okay, everyone, I've been this guy, but I'm just going to be truthful with you here, and this is not me." And his action therefore becomes to convince the world, "I know that you think you know what I am, but you really don't. I'm going to be so honest with you all now," which was just super fun because I'll be honest, like the writing of it was such that for TV series you get given the scripts as they come and they're being created, so you kind of can't see the end game. And I had to sit down with Annie Wiseman and Jacqueline, who are two of Annie's the new showrunner, and Alex is also one of Buono, who's returning directing and show running. And I sat down with them and I said, listen, the writing is so convincing that I'm a bit worried. I kind of agreed to do this role because he was the serial killer. It was super interesting. And you taking that away? You saying that he's none of these things, and without spoiling anything, because it's far more complex than just no, he's not. They said, look, we really want an audience to and the characters to believe that this guy is going through this transformation. However, him as a character, he is never ever telling the truth ever. Even his lies are lies. Do you know what I mean? If that even makes sense, it's so sort of layered. So we really went down the road of believing that this man has changed, and actually through action. I think it was C.S. Lewis who said, if you don't believe, act like you do, and ultimately you will believe. I think that sort of played into my mind of like, if for months and months, if you're he's like one of those undercover cops, that goes into a drug cartel, and they live that life so much that they almost forget who they were and think, wait a second, where is this? And that was a really fun area to play with too in the series, of thinking, wait, does this guy really think he can change? And then once we start putting pressures on him, it starts to unsettle him and wrong foot that lie. But it was super interesting to go down that road of not only convincing the characters and the audience of these lies, but convincing himself as a character that he himself is confused now of where the lie ends and the truth begins.
And it's so great that you bring up that idea of the pressure really being put on him in a lot of different ways, because that same energy that he had for being a serial killer doesn't just dissipate and go away. It still has to be channeled into other places. And, there's just all these little nuances. Like he kind of makes Nathan his project, and it's, I'm going to be so overly protective of you and I'm going to encourage you to unleash this side of your anger because I can't, or I'm going to go to an AA meeting and then go axe throwing with someone afterwards. And so how did you set about figuring out what are these different spaces where this energy is going to kind of come out, and sometimes he expects it and sometimes he doesn't?
Um, I mean, your questions are so good because they almost answer my process completely, because that's really what the challenges were, throughout this season, of thinking, where does that energy go? Like, if you're taking away, we were really playing with the idea, you've mentioned it a few questions ago about this idea of rehab, that this character is applying the rules of the 12-step rules of AA to his own condition, which is ridiculous in so many ways. But there's, two things can be true at the same time. It's also slightly true. You think, well, this is an addiction. This guy has a lifestyle, which is that he does these awful acts of violence. And if he stops that, where does that pressure go? That was his sort of ultimate release. And for several episodes, he does manage to keep control of that. Of course, a leopard can't completely change its spots, and he does ultimately, give in to those, and returns to a version of himself that we saw before. But what was super fun was that he had changed as a character, that he wasn't just, you think he's going to think, oh, he's back to how he was in season one. It was that he'd learned, evolved, and grown through this. But it was super fun because it does give you that distraction, like, I don't know, someone giving up smoking cigarettes. They'll take something else up, or if you give up one thing, you kind of need to replace it with another. So you're so right that his project became Chris's character, Nathan, and kind of, as I say, going behind enemy lines was super fun because we have this romantic storyline with Liana's character. And how much of that is true? Can it be true and untrue at the same time? What are his motivations? Is he just making this up as he goes along? But all of that kind of allowed, I think, me as an actor to understand why the character wouldn't go back to his old actions, because he's got so much on his plate. He's got so many plates spinning that I actually think I'm too busy to do the stuff I used to do.
It's also so fun to watch him in real time try to figure out what his own boundaries and lines are in this completely different and new space. There's a moment where he mentions, oh, Tori wants me to choke her in the bedroom, but I can't do that because he knows if he engages in that, then it'll turn into something else. And there's a great scene with you and Chris Messina where, his anger starts to come out and he's like, don't get up right now. I need you to kind of not come near me because I know what's about to happen otherwise. And so, what was the fun of getting to look at what are these triggers that are really going to still hit him, and how is he going to try to pull himself back and walk away? Because even Rick Springfield music, as we learn, is a trigger for him.
Yes. And it was fun, really, because I mean, season one was spent so much of it him pretending to be something he wasn't, and to play this cat and mouse game with them. I was super intrigued to see where they would take season two, and mining into his character more, of what is it that triggers this person? Why exactly does he do these things? There is a rage there that isn't addressed. There is the feeling of not being seen, which actually is tapped into way episode one, season one, which I really love the reincorporation of that theme. But what also was super fun was that, for me, God, it became so layered that for me, I thought I wanted to keep in my back pocket that this guy is playing a game with everyone all the time. And he is so good at it that he would recognize that, like the choking scene, he would recognize that it's a very believable, unexpected truth that he would stop that and go, I'm sorry, I can't do that. It would draw people even further into his web. And a wonderful technique, again, I sort of was writing this all over my notebook when we were shooting, is for someone who was so feared in season one and seen as a predator, the best thing he could do to make people believe him and trust him was to cut his own claws and pretend to be a victim, someone who needed help. And instead of going, God, I'm really, instead of silently struggling, him sort of owning that, and to say, God, I have this problem, and I need help. And it draws people to him. These characters be drawn to him. And that was super fun, looking at what could be used as a tool in that technique. And what was super fun was some of the characters believe it. You know, you've got Liana's character who Tori, who really wants to believe it, you know, and she goes, I'm with this guy and I've seen a different side to him. You got Chris's character, Nathan, who's on the fence and he's going, I really like this guy, I'm not so sure. Blah, blah, blah. And then you got Kaylee, Ava, who just straight away just doesn't believe him. And what's super fun about that is working out certain other tools to use to implement against her, just thinking, right, this has worked, this game of going, God, I'm really struggling with these things. This is working for her, and a little bit with Chris's character. She needs something else to convince or scare her. So that was super fun as a sort of character study to sort of work out which characters needed what to deceive them.
And you mentioned that idea of right from the beginning of the show, we've known that he wants his work to be seen and revered. And there's a moment in this season where he references having studied the Zodiac killer. So we know that he's been incredibly studious and he's very meticulous and takes a lot of pride in his craft, as he would probably call it. You know, and he has to be good to have gone this long without ever getting caught and kind of taken in. And how does that then parlay into the way that you're playing this character, knowing, you know, there's this sense of ego and pride to him, but also there's this really detailed, meticulous element about him as well?
Well, the two kind of go hand in hand. You know, there was those wonderful sections where, towards the sort of middle of the series, when it's kind of working that people believe and trust that he's changed enough for them to basically disregard what he did and the awful impact he had on so many people's lives. And while that was it was a great sort of tear for the character, a great dramatic pull for me, because while on one hand I'm going, you're in their kitchen, they totally believe that you are not this guy anymore. But on the other hand, am I that dispensable? Was I that, you know, I've spent years and years walking around the streets secretly knowing I'm the most feared man in this city. And so quickly it's forgotten, so quickly it's replaced, so quickly people believe that I can change, that I'm not that good, that I was just this kind of joke, really, in a way, you know, and them not fearing him anymore. You think, well, if I guess one of Matt's new insecurities and fears is, wait, if I'm not feared, what am I? You know, am I pitied? Am I Joe? And you know, there was some scenes in. I remember there's one in the back of the car when I'm in the back of the car with Kaylee's character and Chris's character, and I had to remind them. I go, I don't know what's more annoying, that you know you don't think I've changed, or that you don't realize how good I was when I was doing what I was doing. It was a really fun sort of tone to play with, and ultimately, how long can an egotistical narcissist pretend not to be that, pretend that they don't care, and then also to see in the news someone else getting all of this admiration and, well, fear, I guess, but for him admiration and fear are so intrinsically linked, to think, my God, why did I do this? What was the point in me doing this? For what? You know, I had to really remind, you know, like, take this hit, take this ego hit, because the end game is going to be so much more rewarding. But at times it would be tempting, as I was playing throughout the series, it would be so tempting just to blow everything up and say, haha, got you.
It's so great. And jumping over and talking about Magpie, which you wrote the screenplay for, you know, I love the way that we meet Daisy Ridley's character Annette. And it's this woman who's just been broken down little piece by little piece in so many different ways. It's the fractures in her marriage, you know, feeling really isolated after having her second kid, and the fact they're living so far away from everyone that they were close to. And what does it look like when someone reaches that breaking point? And so, how did you want to kind of interweave those details throughout the script of really giving us that background and that understanding of exactly where we're meeting her at the beginning of the story, so that we understand where she's at and the reason that she's responding to things the way she does throughout it?
Yeah. I wanted to take an audience on a journey of, so for me, what struck me was that it was a piece. Daisy came up with this idea, you know, and her idea, what was so appealing to me as a writer, was that these characters are all overlooked, underestimated, and sort of disregarded. And the characters in them, Shazad's character, he believes her to be this one thing. All the characters in it believe Daisy's character to be one thing, and then right at the end we discover, oh my God, she's not that thing all along. How could I have been? How could I have judged her and overlooked her like he did? Because he's clearly the bad character, and I have accidentally done what he's done and of overlooking her. And I wanted to push that even further. That thing of overlooking to the narrative structure itself. That I was interested in allowing an audience to go, wait, I didn't think I thought I was watching this film, but I'm actually watching this one. And because of that, I didn't want there to be a huge amount of information at the beginning because it would feel like cheating if you're going, this is the case, and then just changing that all at the end. It sort of felt like a cheat. And I was also influenced by there's a book by Ed Zwick called Hits, Flops, and Other Illusions, and he advises creators, storytellers, writers to begin the story as late as possible. And there was a version of Magpie that began with, you see this happy family, and then you see it disintegrate, and then you see this conclusion at the end. And I thought, actually, I'd be far more interested to see how late I can bring the audience into this marriage. And I kept pushing it later and later and later, and I was really happy with where we started because I thought you're already finding this couple at a crisis point. They don't quite realize what the crisis is. They don't realize how thin the ice that they're walking on is, but it's crumbling beneath them. And already an audience within the first, hopefully 3-4 minutes go, there's something not right here, that this is not going to end well. And to your point, forgive me for waffling, but to your point of like weaving those in throughout, it became very important that I wanted, it was always intended to be a character piece. And so that any exposition of the past, of how people view Daisy's character and things that happened to her, I wanted them to be character based, and not just sort of plonked in there. So they're always with an intention. There's a scene where she goes to see her old boss, and he informs the audience of the woman that she used to be. And it's because her action for Daisy to play was to reclaim the woman that she used to be years before. So an audience, hopefully 6-7 minutes in, goes, wait, okay, so this woman, I thought she was this one thing, but she used to have this past, and then it's over, and it kind of is a sort of keep up game with this woman who she constantly eludes us.
I also think with what you pointed out in it really being centered as a character piece, there's a lot of art in the restraint in the writing of the script as well. And especially because Daisy's character is internalizing so much. And she's also very judiciously knowing when to hold back. She kind of allows her husband to reveal himself and to reveal certain things about himself rather than telling him. And so when you were writing, how did you explore those spaces of writing the really internalized side of her, but also knowing when to have more restraint and kind of pull back the dialogue for her in that way?
Well, this is the great joy for writing for one of my favorite actors, which is Daisy. But also I was writing it for her. She asked me to write this piece. So as I was writing it, I can say to her, what about this? Do you like this? And what was wonderful was once I had the first few drafts in place, which were very, very overwritten, my taste is always less is always more. And I want an audience, instead of sitting back being fed information and a story, to lean forward, to try and go, wait, I don't know why this woman is behaving in this way, to lean forward. And you can only do that by denying them the whole picture, by showing them little parts of it, in different spaces. And I knew that Daisy, because she's so fucking good, I knew that I could write like a huge speech and a huge dialogue piece, and then she would understand what that beat was, and then I just took it all away. And Sam, our director, was wonderfully with us in trying to be as brave as possible with that. There are so many scenes where Daisy just does not speak, but she, as an actor, knows 100% what I, as a writer, was intending for that character beat. And the director too knew that, and it was a real, it was a battle, really, because a lot of the time, we do want information as an audience. You go, if we don't know what to think, we might get lost. But I really do believe the audiences are super smart, particularly now we've got so many things that we can watch, and there's so many good things around that we pick up on things so fast. And I thought, to really create suspense where you do not know, where you overlook this woman, we had to be so lean with our storytelling and really strip those things back. And I just think it makes for a far more intriguing character for her, because you never know what she's thinking. And to your point of allowing Shaz's character Ben to present himself. That's the other side of that technique, that if you hide one person, she just allows him to show him who he is instead of constantly going, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. His biggest weakness as a character is he can't help but try and express himself because he thinks the world revolves around him.
Also, in terms of the history of their relationship, I remember Daisy saying that, it was important to both of you to have these aspects of some of the things that have become antagonistic to each other or things that they don't love about each other are the things that they probably used to really love about each other. And it's just like those little idiosyncrasies. And that also gives you so much richness in terms of the history of their relationship. And so, how did you set about deciding what are going to be those details that really kind of create the cracks in the distance now, but actually used to be the things that brought them closer together?
Well, completely, just completely that it was, she used to be the woman that we realize she is, and really that she discovers and remembers who she is at the end of the movie. They're the things that threatened this character. So there was a sort of list of things that would undermine him. It's things like her. There's an early scene. I don't know how many people picked up on it, but it was my intention to be that she used to work for this literary department. He is a writer, and even in him mentioning her book, she sort of comments on the tone and the complexity of his writing, or pretentiousness of his writing. And that used to be something that he admired. That's when they fell for it. The backstory that we created was that he was this writer. He came into this literary agency, and she was one of the editors assigned to him to work for him. And what he loved was her ability to understand text and help him improve. But once he got a taste of this success and the book was out and he got all this fame, he took all of the glory, never once said, well, actually, my wife, now my wife is responsible for a lot of this book too. He just took it all for himself. So any reminder that she used to have an opinion on his creative work now undermines him. It now makes him not feel as special as he wants to feel. And so there were, a lot of those, him as a father, what he is as a dad, constant sort of reminders of who he used to be, how much he's changed and taken for granted. And yeah.
There's so many great details in the writing of it. It's such a fantastic film. So congrats on that and an amazing second season of Based on a True Story. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you. God, you're amazing. I love your questions. That you're so my brain is working. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it.